Hi friends, welcome to Tackleknowledgechannel. So from today onwards we are going to learn about cell biology. First we will be knowing about what is a cell definition, then functions of cells, how cell works. Okay, so now let's begin the lesson. Cells are the basic unit of life. So as we know that cells are the basic unit of life. Okay. In the modern world, they are the smallest known cells in the world that performs all of life functions. So as we know that the smallest known cells in the world is performing all life functions. Okay. So cell is the most smallest cell in the world. It performs all life functions. Okay. Next. All living organisms are either single cells or multicellular organisms composed of many cells working together. So as we know that living organisms can be either single cell means you can call it as a unicellular. Okay, you can call this as a unicellular organisms. And multicellular means it's a multicellular means it contains a more than one cell. Okay, more than one cell is involved, means many cells are forming a organisms. Many cells are going to form an living organisms. So they are composed of many cells working together. Next. So about the cell. Cells are the smallest known units that can accomplish all of these functions. So as we know that cells are the smallest known units. Okay, so cells are the smallest known units that can accomplish all the functions. So cells can function from one cell to another. Okay, defining characteristics that allow a cell to perform these functions including. So we further define the characteristics of a cell to perform its functions. A cell membrane that keeps the chemical reactions of life together. So as we know that cell membrane which keeps the chemical reactions of life together. So we know that the cell membrane is supporting the cell to maintain its shape. Okay, this is the cell membrane which is giving shape to the cell. Okay, it is giving shape to the cell and also it is protecting the cell from environment. Okay, so this cell membrane, it is going to keep the chemical reactions of a life together. At least one chromosomes composed of genetic material that contains the cell's blueprints or software. Blueprints and software. So at least one chromosome in the cell which is composed of a genetic material. Okay, which contains the cell. So genetic material means it's a DNA which is working. This DNA is working as a blueprint. Okay, blueprint and software as a chromosomes. So this DNA is also having a chromosome. Okay, which acts as a software. So chromosome acts like a software. Okay, so this is just to understand about the cell. Okay, next, cytoplasm. So if we see the cell cytoplasm, if we see the cell, this is we will be calling it as a cytoplasm. What is cytoplasm? The fluid inside the cell in which the chemical process of life occurs. So here the fluidity is present. Okay, so the cell cytoplasm will be in a fluid like structure. We'll be calling it as a cytoplasm. So we will discuss further about the functions of the cell that must fulfill in order to facilitate life. So we'll be further knowing about the functions of the cell, along with which the cell is going to facilitate the life, okay, and how they fulfill these functions. So we will be seeing about the functions of cells. Scientists define 7 functions that must be fulfilled by a living organisms. So scientists have defined 7 functions about the living organisms. These are, so first one, a living thing must respond to changes in its environment. So as we know that living things will respond the changes based upon the environment, okay. Next, a living things must grow and develop across its lifespan. So as we know that living things must grow and develop across its lifespan. So we know that living organism can be responding through its environment, okay, environmental changes, and next it is depends on growth, okay, it is going to grow and develop its lifespan. So cell is going to grow and develop. A living thing must be able to reproduce or make copies of life. So as we know that a living thing must be able to reproduce. So this is going to reproduce another cell, okay, which is making its copies. We will be calling it as a daughter cells, okay. So this we will be calling it as a parent cell, okay, and these are the daughter cells. A living things must have metabolism. So as we know that living things is also having a metabolism, okay. So now next we will be, living things must maintain homeostasis. So as we know that living thing must maintain the conditions of the inside and outside of the cell, okay. So that maintenance we will be calling it as a homeostasis, maintenance of the temperature, okay. So both the sides, the cell should be internal and as well as external, it should maintain its temperature, okay. Should maintain the temperature or keep its internal environment the same regardless of the outside changes. So it should act depending upon the conditions of the environment. A living thing must be made of cells. So as we know that living things is made up of cells, okay. So living thing is made up of cells. A living thing must pass on traits to its offspring. So as we know that a living thing must pass its traits to the offspring. So this is the parent cell. So it is going to pass the traits to the offspring, okay. This is the offspring which the parent cell is passing the traits to the offsprings, okay. So next, it is the biology of cells which enables living things to perform all of these functions. So as we know that biology of cells which enables the living things to perform the functions, all functions, okay. It is performing the all functions. So now next, we will discuss how they make the functions of life possible. So now we will be seeing the how these functions of life is possible and how they are making the cell to work, okay. How cells are working, okay. First, in order to accomplish them, they must have, so to accomplish the cell's work, they must have a cell membrane that separates the inside of the cell from the outside. So this is the cell which is having a cell membrane. This is the cell and it is having a cell membrane. We will be calling this as a cell membrane, okay. So cell membrane is separating the inside of the cell. This is inside of the cell and this is outside of the cell, okay. By concentrating the chemical reactions of the life inside a small area within a membrane, cells allows the reaction of life to proceed much faster than they otherwise would. So as we know that as per the concentrations of the cell inside the cell, the chemical reaction is occurring, okay. In a small area, the chemical reactions are taking place for the life purposes, okay. It is depending upon the concentration of the cell. Cells allows the reaction of the life to proceed much faster. So as the cell is reacting to the life, it is showing the reactions to this life, it is much further proceeding its process, okay. Now next, genetic material which is capable of passing on traits to the cell's offsprings. So as we know that it is having a genetic material, we'll be calling this as a DNA, right? So this is the genetic material which is capable of passing the traits to the offspring. Okay, traits to the offspring, right? So it is passing the traits to the offsprings. In order to reproduce, organisms must ensure that their offsprings have all the information that they need to be able to carry out all the functions of the life. So to reproduce, the cell should be reproduce. Okay, reproduce. Then this organism should produce the offsprings. Okay, it is producing the offsprings to have all the information into the offsprings. It is passing the information to the offsprings which they are needed to be carried out throughout their life. All modern cells accomplish this using DNA. So all modern cells are accomplishing this by using this DNA, whose base pair properties allow cells to make accurate copies of cells. So it is dependent on base pairing properties which is allowing the cell to make accurate copies of the cell. Okay, like blueprint. So it's DNA here. DNA is acting as a blueprint for the offsprings. Okay, so it is giving the base pairing properties to the offspring, which is making a number of copies of the same cell. And the operating system. So if we see the accurate copies of the cell, to make its accurate copy of cell, the DNA is acting as a blueprint and a operating system towards the offspring. Okay, some scientists think that the first cell might have used RNA instead. So instead of using first cell might have been used RNA instead. So instead of RNA they have used first as a DNA as a first cell to pass its traits, okay, to the offspring. Proteins that perform a wide varieties of structural, metabolic and reproductive functions. So as we know that the cell also contains proteins, right? So these proteins are going to perform wide variety of structural, metabolic and reproductive functions of the cell. There are countless different functions that cells must perform to obtain energy and reproduce. So as we see that different functions of the cell, those are countless, okay, which they are performing to obtain energy and reproducing the cell. Depending on the cell, examples of these functions can include photosynthesis, breaking down sugar, locomotion, copying its own DNA, allowing certain substances to pass through the cell membrane while keeping others out, etc. So depending on the cell, these are the examples of the functions where the cell is undergoing its functions, right? So first one is the photosynthesis. Okay, first one is the photosynthesis, and next is the breakdown sugar. Second one is the breakdown sugar. Third one is the locomotion. Okay, third one is locomotion. Next one is the copying its own DNA. Copying its own DNA, right? Next, it is allowing certain substances. It is allowing certain substances to pass through the cell. Okay, to pass through the cell membrane. Means the substances which are present outside the cell, they are going to pass through this cell membrane. Okay, cell membrane, while keeping others out. So other molecules are outside only. Okay, so this cell membrane will allow only some particular type of molecule. Next, proteins are made of amino acids. So as we know that proteins are made of amino acids, right, which are like the Legos of biochemistry. So it works like a Legos of biochemistry. So amino acids comes in different sizes, different shapes, and with different properties such as polarity, ionic charges and hydrophobicity. Okay, so as we know that proteins are made from amino acids. Okay, so proteins are made from amino acids. So these amino acids can be different sizes, right? So they are different sizes, different shapes, okay, different shapes, and with they are different properties such as polarity, okay. The amino acid depends on polarity also, ionic charge also, and hydrophobicity also, okay. With these properties only, molecules should go inside or not. The cell membrane will decide, okay. So now next, by putting amino acid together based on the instructions in their genetic material, cells can create biochemical machinery to perform almost any functions. So as we put the amino acid together, we can instruct the genetic material of the cell, okay. Cells can create biochemical machineries to perform almost any function. So they can perform any biochemical machineries for their functions, okay. Next, some scientists think that the first cell might have been used RNA to accomplish some vital functions. So scientists thought that first cell might be RNA, which is accomplishing some vital functions to the cell, okay, and then moved to much more versatile amino acids to do the job as the result of mutations. So they have further thought that there is a much more versatile amino acids which are doing the job of the cell, which is causing the mutations of the cell. The different cell types we will discuss in the next class, which is having different ways of accomplishing these functions. So in next class we will be studying about the different cell types, okay. Okay friends, thanks for watching. If you like my video, please kindly like, share, subscribe, and if it is helpful, please share it with your friends also. Thank you so much. Bye bye.